Do you feel like you've lost some head weight?
Man, you know what? It's since I bloody shaved it off, I was just like, it's never been better. Like I don't know why I had it so long. Like it's such a hassle to keep, you know.
It's
Um,
it's weight.
yeah, it's the biggest pain in the ass, you know. So I love just just having it short and not needing to do anything with it. It's perfect.
It's so zen. I mean, when you hop out of a shower, you know how good it is to
That's
just
it.
like
Like I don't have
towel
to do
down
anything.
your head just like it was your hands or your arms.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I don't have
Man,
to spend like bloody half an hour trying to dry the bloody thing.
because you had really long hair, and you'd leave long hairs all over the floor, and
It was the worst. Have to like mop it all up from the shower. It's the worst, man.
isn't there a statistic that says like you drop 100 hairs a day?
Something like that. Something like that. I don't know. I've never heard that one, but man, it certainly seemed like it. You know.
Good move, bro. Good move. Good move for you, I think.
Yeah.
Looks good, bro.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So what you been up to, man? I know you've been doing a lot of podcasts. Like I actually listened to a few of them a week ago or so.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's rolling for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. I mean, the podcast is just one of those things that just like you said, it's rolling along in the background for us.
Mm.
It's a pretty well-oiled machine. It's going out, an episode each week, and we've got quite a few, banked up and
Yep.
upcoming. So it doesn't look like it's going to be slowing down anytime soon, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, Outside of that, man, I've been also another thing that's sort of rolling on for me. The mentoring stuff. I've still got people on as regular clients, which is good.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I mean, I've been developing a program, actually, a meditation program, which should be launching in a couple of months. I'm sort of like, I've got this roadblock with just shipping some physical stuff from China. But other than that, it's all the digital stuff it's ready to go. And yeah, I'm just been pretty busy, to be honest. So yeah.
That's awesome to hear, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I expect you to be busy. I mean, I know you've gone leaps and bounds since we first met and started talking about finding space. So
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's changed a lot. Like you can
yeah,
see, when sort of you and I first caught up again after
yeah,
however many years.
yeah.
It was like it was like a skeleton. It was a
Oh yeah, it
concept in my
was.
mind.
Yeah, I could really
Um,
tell. I could really feel. Like I still have great memory of that first catch up that we had. Um, we're sitting in my kitchen, and it just all came out. And I think multiple times you said at that point that it's just something that you've been thinking about for so long,
yeah,
and you just had to do it. Had to get the ball rolling.
yeah, that's it. I mean, like I said, it was just something that came into like my conscious awareness that I just needed to do. Like I had the feeling, I had the intuition for so long, for so many years that something like this needed to come out.
Yep.
But I just couldn't put my finger on it. It was just like there were like many puzzle pieces, that like I felt were very real, but they never painted a clear picture until
Mm.
a certain point, and then once it clicked and snapped together, I was just like, holy shit, I need to do something about this. I need to put it out. Like, and again, like it still wasn't anything other than like this image or this manifestation in my mind that I needed to bring it out into
Mm.
physical existence, and then see then what it led me down, which roads it led me down, and here I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think a lot of people might be in a similar position where they're aware that they have to start something, but maybe it's so open-ended and so um it's like they're unable to lock it down, so then it becomes daunting.
Yeah.
And you sort of started with finding space, I think you started that like I would have started so many of the other things that I've done, which is playing by the rules to a degree and coming up with a name for the thing for starters. Like I think a lot of people don't even realize like you can still abide by the common rules of creating a new business or venture, or it's like if you go and rescue a cat or a dog, you're going to name it. It's just a natural thing. But if,
Totally.
if you think too much about it, like you don't even go and get the cat or the dog, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like it's like coming up with the name, and then what's great about finding space to me is that it has a concept within the name. I think that's always beneficial when you have not just a name that you've plucked out of the air, or a name that sounds cool at the moment,
Mm.
or using a word that is popular on Urban Dictionary or something, but to actually have a concept within the name, and then to be able to meet someone that has never heard of this concept before, and to be able to excite someone about the concept is probably the next step after coming up with a name and a
Yeah,
general
man.
idea.
I think like a lot of that, it comes down to, like you said, it's so important like that we don't sort of think about things, too dogmatically one way or another,
Mm.
like we can have a bit of both. And like, I always tussle with this myself personally. Like I whenever I am asked to describe finding space as like a quote unquote business,
Yep.
I cringe a little bit. I do cringe
It's
because
hard, eh?
it's just this thing like the word business in the collective cultural sense. It has this like for me anyway, like just because of the path that I've walked, it has this like very I guess financial based implication. It has this yeah,
Money, yeah.
and like I guess manipulation in a sense, and just trying to get something across to someone for an exchange of financial exchange, value exchange, and like that's not necessarily to say it's a bad thing or whatever, but finding space really isn't that. Like I always say that to people, it really isn't. Like it just truly is like a expression of like what I'm feeling at this time and what has brought me to this point, and what I feel um, resonates with raw human existence. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I really want to ensure that everything that I do on the platform and everything that I put out to the world really reflects that. And like, it's funny, man, that you brought up that resonance piece and being able to describe it to people and just showing someone and for them to be able to connect with it. Like, I've started like putting all my content on YouTube now, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I just recently, like, it was actually this week that I just started uploading all the videos and all the podcasts and things like this, and also the video that you created for me, that 1 minute video.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you know
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep,
I
yep.
put that as, I guess, my my intro
Yep,
for
yep,
what
yep.
Finding Space is
The
all
featured
about.
video kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah. And I got a comment from some random dude who just found, my page. Like, I haven't promoted anything at all. I just basically blind uploaded everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said that it was something that resonated with him deeper than anything he's ever seen. You know
Gotta
what I
love
mean?
that one
Yeah.
comment. I mean, whether it's a private message or in public, I still prefer it in public, but that one comment is it's gold, isn't it? It is the payment. Like we talk about, it's funny how you mentioned business before, and as soon as you started talking about it, you almost tippy-toed around. I don't want this to come across as a negative, that that if you do view business in a negative light, it's almost like you don't want to just shout that from the rooftops and make people who are into business think twice,
That's right.
because I have voiced opinions about money and money being evil, and I've done graphics about it, and uh, I don't think I always think of money that way. I don't think I can um, stay in that one lane. I think I could be convinced that money could be a good thing.
Yeah.
But I do find I tippy toe around that. And I think coming from an advertising background, this is fascinating too, because we obviously want more people to check out our content. Like, it'd be great if more people checked out your podcast, because there's lots of good bits in there, and ultimately, I suppose you want to help yourself and help people. So it's not a bad thing to advertise it. But then it's almost like, yeah, where we have come up with a business name, a concept, content, and their fundamental things to success of a business. The next thing is sort of advertising. And yeah, I don't know, coming from a background of advertising, I'm just more anti-advertising now than I ever have been in my life. I've seen firsthand how you can advertise something, it can take off, and it's the wrong audience that are buying it.
Yeah.
I also think, like, when I was in advertising, I couldn't see how I see it today, which is almost like you're trying to succeed in an industry where everyone in the world hates ads. Like, what a savage place to put yourself.
Yeah, man.
Like, everyone hates ads, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I used to be cheering at, like, some mates of mine who were getting into advertising for television and stuff like that, and they would put a show reel together of fake ads because they didn't have clients yet. So they created really creative, awesome ads, but they were ads, and I just remembered, like, I was so into what they created that I was showing that to so many of my friends when they'd come over to my place in my pad in the city. I'd be like, oh, fuck, just check out this show reel that my mates are making, to get their business out there. And it wasn't until I had, like, one of those entrepreneurial types over, and he was like, at the end of it, he's like, Justin, I just sat here and watched, like, you know, half an hour of ads. He didn't get it at all, And I think
Yeah.
that's hilarious. It's such a reminder. Like, I still have that in my floating around in my head of, like, when you're in it, sometimes you got the blinders on,
Yeah,
and
man.
it's like, this ad's killing it, or I want to make ads, I want to make better ads. But, like, ultimately, if you take a step back, it's like, why do I even want to do ads? Everyone fucking hates ads.
Totally.
So it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just think about, the principles and behind advertising, I guess, and even like social media and how it works today. These things they have, I guess, discovered what humans will be appealing to people, right? And they're just sort of using that to manipulate people to, um,
Manipulates, that word pops up a lot when you talk about advertising.
yeah. I mean,
Deceit,
that's it.
deceiving people.
That's it. Like the internet does it so much now. Do you know what I mean? Like with how the Google search algorithm works, how your news feed works on your socials and all this sort of thing. It's just about now it's like a tailored ad reel for people based on their traits, their demographic, their location, all these sorts of things. Like
Like,
it's
it
just
follows you around
yeah,
now.
yeah. And
Yeah.
like, it just takes on all these like these same human manipulative traits. And, we understand like what it is and what it does and how it works, but but it works, it works because, we can't pull ourselves away from that shit.
It's almost like, yeah, it works, but then it's scary to think there's, like, people who've spent a lot of time studying the psychology of consumers, and then, you know just going for the jugular with it. It's like, it freaks me out that a successful business is one that makes money, and it's almost like so long as it's making money, it doesn't matter how it's making money, it's a success. And
Yeah.
that freaks me out, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it that like if you start a legitimate business, you probably will be out of pocket, and you need to, like, in a real hurry, you need to start paying that off and, get to square one as soon as you can. But how you go about doing that, you hear often the term selling out, and
Mm.
it's gotten to a point even where maybe business is so hard for people that they've come around to realizing that selling out isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's almost accepted,
Yeah.
or more than ever. I
Mm.
think like no one started out wanting to be a sellout,
Yeah.
but I understand that some people are like, well, fuck, I have to, or in order to survive, or there's this sort of excuse that's attached to it, a
Yeah.
justification for um, not giving something 100%, but like, just compromising on something in order to actually make some money.
Yeah. And I think like, comes back to, again, how you feel about money. And like, I'm quite similar to you, in terms
Mm,
of what money does to people. And I guess it's one of the major, factors in modern society now that I guess is held in the one of the highest regards. It's one of the things that we as a collective feel is of greatest value. Aside from all these other things like personal image, aesthetic image, and status and things like this. Like these are the things that we're told that are most valuable in living in the modern world now, right? So
mm,
these basically are, I guess, our pillars of decision making, for the most part. And as you know, like a lot of people will make very, I guess, um, not so great decisions based on if they're weighing up personal contentment, happiness, fulfillment, in pursuit of these things and to the detriment of themselves.
yeah, that's the key bit there. Like, it's pretty, like they hand out credit cards to everyone pretty much.
Mm,
They, whether you've got money or not, you can still get one and then start racking up that debt. And then there's also that sort of saying, like, the man who dies with the most debts wins.
yeah,
So the concept of like, why would you try to own that, $500,000 Lamborghini when you can just get a loan for it? You know, got to be realistic. Like, do you think all these people that have boats with helicopters on them own that stuff?
mm,
Most likely not. Most likely it's just debt on top of debt, loans on top of loans. And then you have another clause that says, if you die, all of these loans get paid off somehow or sold off. And so your family doesn't get affected. So you can actually design a life where you can live like that if you want.
yeah,
You don't have to earn every dollar. You could just live in debt.
yeah, yeah.
But whether you can live with it or not, that's
Well, that's the thing, man. I mean, I've met like you would know this yourself, in terms of like the generic definition of what success means. You've lived that life, you've like quote unquote made it. And like um a I have friends and like mentors who live that that life of sailing the oceans for years and years and years without a care in the world, when they were in
mm,
their 30s and things like this,
mm,
the model life, the goal for everyone. But then they quickly realize that that's not what it's about. They come back and you're just like, all right, what's next, sort of thing. um what am I going to fill with the rest of my, like, the decades that I have left?
yep,
There is still always going to be this like level of emptiness within you, unless you figure what that is that you're truly yearning for. Do you know what I mean? So like to think that living this way and continually patting yourself with the next external stimulus and then the next like luxury,
mm-hmm,
um to me, that's like a level of, distraction, avoidance, it's escapism to me, in really answering the true questions of what, your heart is asking in life. And it's a very different picture that it paints to what, like, the external world shows you as what life means,
I find that fascinating that, like, bang on, right? Like, you're bang on there, and that, like, someone could be barking up the wrong tree for a long time, only to realize much later that, oh shit, like, I was on the wrong path. But I find it fascinating that if you take a step further back from that, it's like everyone's going through something transitional.
Totally.
And it, like, the other night I did a podcast with this guy who lost 90 kilos in a year, and got off some heavy opioids. And um, he was thanking me for giving him 5 minutes when he came into Zen Garage. And it was funny to hear, because he's like, oh, I gave him 5 minutes. And then he saw me, head back into the office, and he peeked in there and he saw me typing and I was working. And he was just really thankful for those 5 minutes. But I'm not aware of that.
Mm.
Like, it's just so weird to think that um, people are going through transitions. And then if you give someone time and respect, even when they're going through that transition, it can make a world of difference. Like, it's interesting that a lot of kids that came into Zen Garage would ask typical questions like, oh, how much power is your GTR making? I'm like, oh, fuck, man. Couldn't you ask something else? It's such a boring question. How much power is it making, bro? But at the same time, I'm like, it's almost like with any interview I've ever had, it's like they ask you a boring question. Well, fuck the question. I'm going to say what I need to say anyway.
Mm.
And I'm just going to answer it like blah, like as long as I can, and just ramble on.
Absolutely.
So I feel like that whole thing of, you never know where these people are going to be. Like, sure, it's a simple question. Sure, you can see they're really young. But like, if you just flog them off, then you're not helping at all.
Yeah.
But if you give them a bit of time, who knows? It's like that last interview you did with that lady who's a martial artist.
Yeah.
And she was just saying how, like, one small sentence, one small sort of almost half joke changed something for her. It flicked the switch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even like just being on your podcast flicked the switch for me. It's kind of like um, I listened back to it, and it was just like a mirror. But I had the mirror every morning.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything. But the podcast with you and Sean, just I'm like, oh shit, I don't really like how muddled and angry I sound when I'm talking about that, or
Mm.
kind of woke me up, flick the switch.
I mean, that's the power of, just discussion and conversation with people of from different backgrounds, of different perspectives and things like this. Like I always say, like, your closest relationships are your greatest teachers. And it's true, right? Like, you think about the people you're closest with are the ones who are able to, trigger you the easiest.
Yeah,
And
family.
those things, they're not like actually reflections on who your family or your close relations are. They're reflections of, what you think of certain situations or how you feel about certain things, right? And like you said, if we're not like aware to that, then it can fly by, and then we'll just get upset, triggered, emotional, and say, oh, fuck, I wish that they weren't like this, or I wish they didn't say stuff like that, or wish they didn't believe this or that, X, Y, and Z. But it's realistically not about them, right? Like, our experience of life is really just about how we experience it internally, and how we perceive everything through, our individual lens of perception.
I saw a video this morning, actually, on YouTube, where they featured three people that were over the age of 100, and they just asked them, do you have any regrets in life? And heavy questions.
Mm.
But neither of them had any heavy regrets, but they were also, when someone that's over 100 years old says that they just live the day as it comes, you hear that when you're younger and you think, oh, fuck, I'm going to jump out of a plane and like have a mass orgy and do all this stupid shit if it's my last day on earth. But you don't think like that when you're 100.
Mm.
You're not going to go out there and do all this crazy shit because there's going to be another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was really fascinating. And just one of them just said, well, so long as they can still be useful, they're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty cool,
Totally. And like, you can learn so much from that. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, the difference in the parallels between when you're young and you say things like this, like, um, life's short. You got to, make use of every day and just live like it's your last day. Things like this, and you compare it to the perspective of someone who has had many decades of life. Hundreds of years old, whatever.
Mm.
They're not about so much this exhilarating experience, but in the simple things they can find that exhilaration. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? In
Yeah, yeah,
every
yeah.
breath, in seeing like the color or the hues, different hues of color on like a rose petal. The
Yeah.
different like aromas that come out of this. Like this is really what, for me anyway, like
Mm.
in the moment means.
Mm. Mm.
And this is where, for me, like the true depth of life is drawn from. It's never anything that is external. It's always comes from inside yourself.
Yeah. I would look, it's just you're obviously more at peace with yourself than a whole lot of people though,
Mm.
especially like in my circles is at least like just ever since doing that podcast with you guys, I've gotten back on social media. I'm I'm louder again. And not only am I louder, I'm finding that social media is so loud. Like this all these American politics, and it's like I'm seeing people that I like what they post. So it pops up on my feed, and a lot of it's like memes or silly stuff, but I don't mind that stuff. It's like a quick giggle, and I just keep scrolling down. But when when I see people getting really it's divisive in the stuff that they post because it's trying to make people feel bad. It's
Mm.
like they're attacking another human being. I don't care if it's a fucking president or what, they're still slamming another human being, and they're also at the same time slamming anybody who supports that human being. So all of a sudden all the awesome posts that they were making just vanish, and all I'm feeling when I see this hate is like I do want to just unfriend, and I
Mm.
don't want to because everyone's entitled to their opinions. um it's obviously a form of passion, like they're very passionate about being anti-Trump or anti-Biden or whatever, and they're going at it,
Yeah.
but it's become like a daily thing for me to see this stuff. And it's like, it doesn't make me feel good. That's the bottom line. Like the bottom line is I check it, I read it, I want to comment, but it's like, I don't want to add fuel to that fire. I think where once upon a time, I'm all for like chucking my opinion into anything and everything. I think I'm slowly learning that like, oh, what's the point? Still, if it's American politics, I'm like, man, I don't want to get worked up about it, you know? And a lot of people are saying, well, you should, Justin, because whatever happens over there affects us over here. But man, like when I actually go outside to the beach, there is no politics. there's no COVID here. It's like,
Yeah, man.
I don't want to, you say that out loud, you get shot down, but it's like, but man, like I haven't seen anyone wear a mask in Maroubra Beach since COVID started. Not one single person.
Mm.
Um, I'm not saying that it's not a scary thing. I mean, I'm sure so many people are scared of it. It's not, doesn't surprise me with the media constantly reporting these huge numbers. But I'm at a stage in my life now where I'm wondering whether they're reporting these numbers just to, it's like a different agenda. It's like, do they really care? Or are they just chucking these numbers out to keep you where they want you, kind of thing?
Yeah, man. And like, I think we each can, I guess, take it how we want to. And like for me, I haven't like read or watched the news for God knows how long, like many years now. And that's just my personal choice because, you know, like you and like what you just said, like I just recognize that there is some level of curation involved with the media for a underlying purpose. It's not objective news,
It
at the end of the
just
day.
well, it just means that you have to do so much more work. That's all.
Yeah.
Like you can't just watch one channel, but sadly, a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
So,
it can be very again, this word manipulative again in a sense to, skew or distort people's perception of what is actually going on. And like, I'm not some, conspiracy theorist to say that it's all about some agenda or another, but I just recognize that it's not 100% objective truth, and it is out there again as a form of entertainment to a degree, right? It really is, right?
it's what I've been saying lately is like the only reason why I even talk about it is because it's funny to me.
Mm,
Like that's how it started for me. It was like I was actually laughing about this stuff.
mm,
If someone was trying to have a serious debate with me about politics, I'd be a student. I'd be like, okay, I'm more than happy to learn,
mm.
from someone who's super passionate about it. But I can't have a serious debate about politics because I'm nowhere near experienced
Yeah,
when it comes to the topic.
yeah,
So I'm just trolling, really. But I don't mean to get people who are one side or the other to be really upset. But when a whole lot of people are wishing someone death, I kind of can't not chime in. Like, and it's not ego. Like I don't have this huge ego that puts me in another person's shoes, but I can sympathize with just about anybody.
yeah,
And I don't think I'd ever want to be in someone's shoes where, millions of people are on social media, photoshopping your face on stuff and wishing you death. I think like, I don't know how any human being is meant to cope with that,
yeah, totally.
you know?
And yeah, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, I can't ever sit here and judge one person's actions against another. Like, this like divisiveness between like, this us versus them
Mm,
tribal
mm,
mentality. Like,
mm, mm.
I personally find it like it's silly,
It's
and
debating.
it's like a disillusionment of what reality truly is, right? Like there is no concrete black and white, right or wrong. There
Mm-hmm.
never will be, like
Mm-hmm.
in my mind. And like I think that a lot of people in modern times, they feel like there is, because everything is so concrete, everything is so paved out and clear for us. There's such strong emphasis on science and definition and things like this.
Yep.
This is what we're taught to learn and understand and recognize as reality. But we can't be so naive to think that although we've created such an amazing civilization and society and all this amazing technology, right? We can't be just so naive to think that we are above nature, you know, and know everything in the wider universe. It's just when you take a step back and think about this, like we are just a part of the whole. You know, there is always something that we're not going to understand fully and completely. And to stand on one side and like be so
It's not
vehement
logical.
about, you know, one thing and say that everything else is wrong, there lacks it's, you have your blinders on. You lack open-mindedness and humility, you know, in understanding, you know, what is actually going on around you. We're like this fucking tiny person on this big space rock flying through the fucking universe, right?
It's so true, though.
We are nothing, you know, we are nothing, you know?
But I find it fascinating that even though we know that, it's like people who are anti-climate change, or people who are like basically like real hippies, you know, they're just real hippies at heart. Like they feel for the earth, but at the same time, like they're obviously, like any minority group, they're louder than ever with social media and stuff these days. But it's almost like what they're hoping for is for us to sort of go backwards, to undo a lot of these things that we've created and things that we enjoy, like electricity and technology. And it's like, man, I really feel for those guys, because they're fighting with all their hearts. But there are no solutions. Like it's weird to be fighting a fight without having a solution. You know, it's like they just feel so hurt that they want it to fucking change, and they want it to fucking change now. But there is no way that it's gonna happen in a hurry. That like all of a sudden we give up all these luxuries that are hurting the planet. It's a really tough one, man. It's like, again, it almost goes against their very being of being one with nature. Because they're getting so worked up about it, you know.
And like, you know, even, and that's a good example. Like even good intentions can, you know, have negative, you know, implications. Do you know what I mean? Like again, like for anyone to stand so stoutly on just one side and one idea, you know, that inherently means that you're closed to everything else outside of that, right? And like that just comes with like a presumption that everything else is wrong, or absolute knowing, you know. We stand here, it's like saying we stand here and we have absolute knowledge of what we need to do as a human race, right? And if you don't stand with us, then you're wrong and you're doing the wrong thing. You know, I get, again,
we're going in circles, but you're right. It's like, it just reminds me of when you're in high school and there was this debating class, you know, debating club. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but it was an option. You could go and learn how to debate, and it seriously was just splitting the class in two, and a teacher would set a topic, and whether you thought it was right or wrong, you just took a side and you hopped up there. Two people would just go at each other, and one person was the better debater.
And like, what the fuck does that prove? Do you know what I mean? that in itself is the problem, because, you know, and a debate, like there is as the result, there's a winner and a loser, but it's not about winning or losing, right?
Well, especially if it's like it's just thrown out there, and it's not about the topic anymore, but it's more about what kind of debating techniques can you use and tricks up your sleeve to catch somebody out.
I mean, that in itself is like the in my mind, like the wrong way to look at things, in that there is no winning or losing. What does that achieve for anyone, for you to win an argument, right? It's really just to like assert some sort of egoic dominance or superiority, to say that my ideas are better, or I've just come up with better ways to, negate all your arguments. But like, again, you take a step back, who the fuck knows anything and everything about everything? No one, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Bottom line.
You've just been able to remember more shit or something like this,
Yeah.
or like craft words or sentences that render the other person silent, essentially, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like we talked a little bit about before about everyone being on this sort of like or on a transition, or you could be going through multiple transitions in life, and um, it's something that's popping up a lot for me lately. Is like levels, like
Mm.
it, so many different levels. Like I think I saw a podcast. I think you were wearing a UFC top.
Oh yeah,
So you do watch the UFC?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I love the UFC, but it's like um, there was a fight with a New Zealander recently, the champ Izzy
Mm.
Israel Adesanya, and he went up against also an unbeaten fighter that had just been mowing people down, and every every sort of review of that fight just mentioned that Izzy was just on a different level,
Mm.
and it's a real visual thing for me. It's like and it's resonating a lot with me in that it's so difficult to have this kind of one-on-one with someone that's open, but like at different levels. It would be so much harder to do this. It's like when I put a call out on Facebook a couple of days ago. If anyone's out there that wants to do anyone opinionated out there, which you can only write so much before it makes it a huge post, and you don't get that cool graphic where it's big text. So I wanted to write more things, but I'm just like, I just put that out there. If you're opinionated, at least you're not going to be sitting there silent Bob. Like at least if you have an opinion or have something to say, have questions, it's already going to be more interesting for me. But I had so many people message me that I never heard of these people
Mm.
before, and um, I did the thing where I clicked on their names, checked out their profiles. Some of these guys were really young, and then it just instantly reminded me of having huge arguments with a 20-year-old kid who is wearing a suit with nice leather shoes and
Mm.
is gunning after the $1 million.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, fuck, there's so many levels that maybe I should be careful about who I have on a podcast.
Mm.
Um, I don't want to have to like meeting people halfway would be the ultimate thing.
Mm.
But if you have to stoop down, or you have to remember what it was like to be at that level in order to get a conversation going, like that could be really frustrating.
Yeah. And like, again, you'd have to preface some of these things, like depending on how people were brought up and like the generation that they sort of grew up in, like the younger generation these days, like, these trigger warning things are a big thing, you can't say certain things without potentially having them misconstrued or misinterpreted. So like, it's an interesting balance. Like, again, for me, it's fascinating in that like it teaches me the difference between what growing up with a smartphone in your hand can really do to a person. It's so it's such a disillusioning thing. It really changes your perception of what reality truly is. And like, to me, it's almost like if it's overexposure to these sorts of things, it becomes a crutch.
Mm.
It almost becomes a crutch in terms of how you develop as a human being and like your level of resilience to be able to, traverse this fucking very complex world that we live in,
Do you think I did a photo shoot yesterday with a girl who lives out near the Hawkesbury, and like just even driving out of the city, you know what it's like. It's boring as fuck, man. Like now I understand every time the reason why every time I shoot with her at my place, she's got an energy drink in her hand. And it's because like the M5, M7 is just, it's soul crushing. You know, even if I was listening to some people yapping on the radio, it wasn't enough to keep me awake.
Mm,
Like it's just, oh God. And then, you know, I get it all the way out there and you don't see houses, you see like acreage. People have these huge blocks of land.
mm,
And it reminds me of like, you know, that desire to own a block of land or own a patch of grass. It's not like you're not trying to own like an apartment, which feels like a rat's nest, you know, like there's 100 fucking people sleeping above you, below you, to the left of you, to the right of you. There's all these bodies everywhere.
mm.
Like it goes back to that sort of early Aussie memories of like, yeah, you know, you want to work hard and get a block of land, um, horses and cows, and you know, even seeing like kangaroo crossing signs. I was
Yeah,
like, shit, just an hour's drive, and I'm again. There's no COVID here.
yeah, man.
there's no there's no American politics out here, and just like I got to meet a mom, and just hanging out with her mom for a bit was just awesome. You know, she's like, yeah, we're never inside. They've got decks on everything, and they're sitting out on the deck, and you know, it was just nice. It was refreshing just to
Yeah,
see how like maybe you know we have this the city and the iPhones and technology, and it's so wearable now. Like I laugh at the Apple Watch, man, because
mm.
it's like that was like Dick Tracy, and you know, like didn't expect that to happen so quickly.
Yeah. Well, wasn't it on The Simpsons as well? You know, one of those like, was it a
The
tele?
Simpsons
Yeah,
predicts everything,
yeah,
apparently.
yeah. Apparently, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, me personally, I've been looking for property, out in the Blue Mountains, you know, lately.
There you go.
That's my thing. Like, and and like this is it talks to this concept of finding space. You know, finding space is not just about, you know, inner space. It's about physical space as well. And these are all the things that you can control as a human being, right? Like I
Hmm.
can control the level of exposure that I have to you know, to general media and social media and everything else that,
You can, yeah,
yeah.
well, we're meant to be able to.
Well, look, I would say strongly that we can, right? But
Mm,
again, it just depends on, like, again, this level of resilience that you have to this thing and like what it means to you. Like, I know, again, I talk like I'm downplaying um, addiction and things like this. I'm not by any means. I know it's difficult, but I'm
mm,
saying that it's possible, you know? That's all I'm saying. And like I understand that addiction is one of those things that, like, you know, I've been addicted to social media before in my life as well. Like I've been addicted to cigarettes. I've been addicted to, like, you know, drugs, cocaine, marijuana, all these sorts of things, like
mm,
alcohol.
mm.
Um, it's difficult to get off that shit. But again, it's like what drives you to want to, you know, get off it, you know? What drives you to not expose yourself to it? Like, you know, you can tell that story for yourself as well, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and
Like
people will
you've
have
been
your
through
back
that.
too, though.
Yeah,
People will have your back, you know,
totally.
like even like I think I brought up Reddit like a couple of weeks ago on my socials, and um I've always been on Reddit for the games that I play, computer games, but it's always negative. It's always it's like a smorgasbord of just a place for people to complain.
Mm,
And again, it's so inhuman because people who are working at the games developers, like they're on a salary and they can only do so much, and it's very easy for someone just to complain about something as the end user.
mm,
Um, but the way they hammer the staff and it gets really nasty. But I've been on Reddit for the last few weeks, and man, there's some gold there. You know, there's some people that are really expressing themselves and their stories just got to look for it. It's like a podcast, same shit. You just got to find the gold. But it is sad how many people um look for company on Reddit, and they know they're not going to get it because it's text based. It's
Mm.
not like a face to face or even like a Zoom call.
Yeah.
It's it's like there's a subreddit called Ask Me Anything, and there's people that are like, it's pretty common, man. I've read it a lot. Like, I'm fucking home alone. I'm lonely. I'm depressed. Ask me anything, and it's really common,
Right.
and uh, it's really tough because you can see they're trying, but it's not really trying. It's
Yeah.
too easy. It's like they're on their smartphone. They just go bam, 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 and they're looking for something to make them feel better
Mm.
very quickly. Like,
Yeah.
just a couple of nice comments would be good. Oh, okay, I can go to bed tonight, and it's bizarre. I can't quite figure it out, but I can
Well,
see
it's
some good
almost like
intentions on there.
yeah, I mean, it's almost like a way for people to cope these days, right? And it is sad because like, and I don't, like you said, it's trying but not trying hard enough, and it's no fault
Mm.
of the individuals, right? Because again, like I'm a big reader, right? I read every single day, and lately I've been reading books about just I guess the development of human beings and how that has progressed over time, and how this concept of safetyism has become a real crutch for people, in terms of just trying to protect people from certain things, and how that negatively impacts what happens later down the line. There's studies saying that people are developing at much slower rates in terms of going to adulthood, um, even coming out of college, just because they're so coddled, and it's tough. Like that they use this example of the peanut allergy, back in the 50s or 60s,
Mm.
and it's really interesting. Like they first discovered that kids were getting allergies to peanuts, and how it could be potentially fatal.
Yep.
So their knee-jerk reaction was to like completely shut off exposure to any peanuts to any children, and like shoot warnings everywhere and all these sorts of things. And from there, lo and behold, the level of reported allergies to peanuts like skyrocketed, because people's immune systems weren't given the opportunity, like that acute small exposure to
Yeah.
peanuts, to adapt
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
become, I guess, resilient to those things.
That's trippy. Hey.
And like I think that's that thing. This analogy can be applied to everything, in terms of like
Everything.
our level of safety and our resilience to things, right? If you
Yeah.
don't allow people to experience life for themselves, then it's going to be very hard once they go out and try, and they actually come out of this box and they're like, holy fuck, there's so much more to life
Yeah.
than what I've been shown, you know.
I mean, I mean, like, I hate to bring it back to politics, but that's what that's what COVID and the government, like to me, the government's always been fairly invisible. Like you, I don't watch the news either, and government's always been something that, yeah, I kind of know that they're taking some, as soon as you get your first job in high school, you kind of know that they're taking some money out of your pay. So I'm kind
Mm,
of like, oh fuck, that was already annoying. But generally speaking, government's always been like kind of invisible. But I think there's so much more in your face right now with like how the hell can we not have a funeral or a wedding? And I'm just like, it's so next level that it's become like, like a sci-fi film.
yeah,
But it happens so quickly. And you're right with you said knee-jerk reaction, man. That's exactly how I think shit starts to go wrong.
totally.
It's like a lady got hit by a bus on George Street in the city, and the very next day, cops were handing out fines for anyone that was jaywalking.
Mm,
I'm like, the very next morning, they were
mm,
handing out fines, and I'm like, that doesn't fix anything.
yeah,
That's a fucking hardcore knee jerk reaction.
Totally.
you know, and it's like but that shows how powerful, like, you know, like you read you read these books in like Brave New World and
Mm,
1984, and you read these things as a kid, and you know, it's almost like school is so shit in my mind. Like school is so crap. But then that's like, hey, they fucking let me read those books though.
yeah.
And there's a lot in those books.
Totally, man. Absolutely. Like
So then
Brave
you,
New
you
New
start
World,
to wonder
there's
where there's some people like open-minded people infiltrating the system to
mm,
plant seeds for us.
absolutely. Like you think about like when I think about that back in school days, it was
Mm,
like the Truman Show was the movie
right.
that they showed us back in our senior years in English.
See,
And
someone
like
snuck that in there, right?
mate, like
I
you
mean,
think about like the nuance and the layers underneath what that story is trying to fucking tell people, you know?
mm.
Even like The Matrix, do you know what I mean? Like The
Oh, the
Matrix
Matrix.
is one of the movies that has been like so profoundly like influential in my life. And I didn't realize that until like, just years ago, but like, it has played such a pivotal role in like, my understanding of what I can see around me now, perceiving the world and like these sorts of things, like totally like people are just, in an artistic way, which is beautiful. Like this is how we can get our voices out there through art.
Dude, I
And
feel the same way with the Matrix, but it still I don't feel so comfortable saying it because it is a Hollywood film.
mm,
But you know, like I did some research on the Wachowski brothers just the other day. I'm like, fuck, they're not even the Wachowski brothers anymore.
mm,
They're the Wachowski sisters.
yeah,
So that is also a sign of the modern times. And if those guys were ahead of themselves with the Matrix, then they know what's up.
yeah,
You know,
totally.
changing your sex when you're so well known, and after creating such amazing things and having to deal with the politics that you have to deal with for changing your sex and being in the spotlight can't be easy.
Yeah.
So these guys are like, or these girls, you know, I'm not even used to it yet. I'm just like, holy shit, how did that skip past? That's what happens when you don't watch the news. Like I
Yeah.
didn't had no idea.
Mm,
But like, I'm so with you. Like when I watched The Matrix at that time in my life, I was chasing the money. I was running a design company, and I was really pushing hard and working for the man, you know, corporates.
mm.
But that movie just like made you feel like you were just plugged into this system, and that you wanted to unplug.
Yeah, totally, man. Like I say this all the time, like it's on my website even. Like this, how Morpheus describes this splinter in your mind. It's like a splinter in your mind. You just don't know what
Yeah.
it is, and you
Mm.
just you can't you can't put your finger on it, but you just know that something is amiss in your life.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing corporate and high flying and all this sort of thing,
Mm.
that's exactly how I felt. But I just I drowned it out through all those means, all those like drugs and alcohol and all those things I mentioned before,
Mm.
and I didn't want to answer the call. But like, now looking back, I'm just like, holy fuck, like I can see it clear as day, clear as day. But yeah, it has some, wonderful, wonderful imagery and wonderful, like, metaphors in that movie that just,
So many,
yeah.
so many wake up calls in the one film.
Mm,
You know, if one of the wake up calls in the first 10 minutes doesn't get you, then maybe another one half an hour in will.
absolutely.
So, and you know, it doesn't hurt that it was so stylistically cool as well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what drew me in, back when it was first released,
Mm.
it was just about how cool and new and diverse the aesthetics of it was.
But I think like that the movie was focused on the self as opposed to what we were used to with these kind of films is like that whole um it's a war, and it's a war between good versus evil.
Mm,
You know, so many films that came before that in that genre, especially sci-fi and stuff, it's always the good versus evil. And I don't think the Matrix has those aspects to it, but for me, it was more about like focusing on the self and that positive message of you're just one of many, but you could make a difference. As cheesy as that sounds, and that whole concept of like waking up. You know, people use the term woke a lot these days.
Totally.
You know, I mean, going back to you for a second, like this whole being woke or like feeling like you're awake now in comparison to when you were in corporate before, for example, or being addicted to drugs or whatever. Like, do you feel like you are in a transition now and that further down the line, you might look back at it and go, fuck, that was just another one of those transitions? Or do you feel like the state that you're in now is a state that you can see yourself in for a very long time to come, and that you're just going to sort of stay on that path and keep building on it?
Yeah.
You know?
So this is the way I see it, right? In terms of like answering the question for the path that I'm taking, like the path for me, I describe it as the pathless path, right? There is no path, so to speak, but I know that this is the direction that I need to be walking. And I know that there is no end destination, so to speak, but one step reveals the next step, essentially. And I just feel it intuitively that this is the way that I need to walk in my life, right? And in terms of like states of being and things like this, like I sort of take, and like for me lately as well, the last like few years, especially, like I take influence and learning from nature and how that has taught me what life is about. Like in terms of this word transitions, I feel like we're always in transition, you know, like the seasons teach us a lot about this cyclic nature of life. You know, there's always going to be ups, there's always going to be downs. There's going to be the cold of winter where, you know, we need to hibernate, we need to be with oneself. And then we come out to spring when we're starting to flourish, and then we grow. And in summer, when we're full bloom, but then we will always revert back. There will always be times when we, you know, enter back into the cold of winter. And it's about sort of managing this and understanding that, you know, life is always about growth and evolution and cycles, you know, and we just progress down this pathless path, this path that we intuitive want to walk down, you know, peeling back the layers, going through these cycles, you know, shedding skin like a snake, you know, until it all ends for us. Do you know what I mean? This for me is like the truth of what my life is about in existence, you know. Like I can't put my finger on it at all, and I can't say definitively what it's going to look like.
Yep.
But I know and I feel like this word feeling like is so important, you know. And you will know if you just ask yourself, you know, whether you feel content or fulfilled right in this moment in your life, you know. Only you can answer that for yourself. And if you don't, that means you might be walking in the wrong direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's like, again, because of going through transitions, you could be feeling in that moment, you could be feeling that you were on the right path or doing the right thing, only to realize much later that you weren't. So it's a trippy thing. Like all I can say is I am valuing like just spending my time talking to people now, as opposed to hating people. You know, and you talk about like the seasons and like there's gonna be ups and downs, and I'm so hyper aware of that. Like I am so hyper aware that I've had ups and downs my whole life, and the downs have been so much more intense. You know, like I can definitely look back on a memory that was a sad memory and bring myself to tears, but I can't think of a happy memory from my life where I can bring up the same belly laughter. it just won't happen. So I already value the lows
Yeah.
a lot more than the highs, and I know they hit me harder uh, when it comes to feeling.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm ready for um, another low. Like, I like everything that you said about like it's sort of suggesting that you can't control this and you have to take it as it comes. But like I'm not scared of the low, but I'm definitely not looking forward to it. You know,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like I don't know what it's gonna be. No idea. Um, but like I am totally aware that like yeah, you need to have that both of it. You know, it almost exists to humble you sometimes.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, like you yourself, you can like I know I've interacted with you quite a bit in the last couple of years, right? And like
Mm,
you think about how you feel right now
mm,
versus how you felt, back when we first reconnected. Even that transition, it hasn't been that long. It's
no.
like less than 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And like this in itself, this is like you felt the lowest of lows, right?
Mm,
And that was your lowest of lows at that point.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
you've learned something from that. And like this talks to your point of, not really knowing until it hits you and says, oh, holy shit, okay. I thought that was the way I was supposed to go,
Yeah.
but I've learned something from this low. It's telling me it's not. Okay. You scratch that one off the list. Point to the next one. This is like, this is as good as it gets in terms of like the guidance that we're going to have. We have like intuition is like the strongest thing, and it can only be taught and honed through your own experience. Like we don't, unfortunately we aren't taught like the language of the body and feeling and sensation and what cues to listen to in
Mm.
school. It's not like, oh, you know next class we're going to learn how to listen to our heart center or our
No,
intuition. Do you know what I mean?
it's just biology. It's just textbooks.
Yeah, it's all about intellect, right? And
Mm,
like the intellect is good. It helps us. It's like a supporting mechanism, but it
mm,
can't be the only thing that we use to guide us through life. You
mm,
know, you need to use both. And
mm.
like again, like know this, like 100%, you're gonna fucking stumble. Like there is no fucking way
No
around it.
doubt.
You're
Yeah.
gonna trip, you're gonna stumble, you're gonna fall.
The sooner the better too.
Yeah, like you're gonna learn lessons, and I learn lessons every day. I fucking like trip over all the time, and I do dumb shit all the time still. Like don't think that like I'm sitting
Mm.
here thinking and like holding up this air of like a enlightened monk. I would never get there. But I strive to get as close as possible. Do you know what I mean? And that's all it is about for me.
Man, I think like it wasn't the last time that I caught up with you at the cafe, because that was with Sean, but it was the time before.
Mm,
And I thought about that a little bit ago about what my state of mind was like at that point. And I was so lost. Like, I just remembered feeling so helpless and just verbal diarrhea. Just, you were just there to listen to me.
mm,
And you were also there to calm me down and just say, it's all right, Justin. Like, you know, you didn't sit there and give me answers.
mm,
You just sort of just made me feel like, okay, well, it's okay. But at that point, I just remembered like I was a shell of who I am, and um, I was almost in shock that I even made it there because I just didn't have that motivation to even get out of the house.
mm,
And I think I'd gotten over the worst of it, but I still wasn't. It just hadn't clicked for me yet, and I just was still sitting there, just trying to figure what the fuck am I gonna do, And it's amazing how quickly it went from that to then being on a podcast with you guys, and then I hate to repeat myself, but holy shit, like it did flick a switch. and you'd never know when it's going to happen.
That's it.
But I think talking to people really helps, you know,
Totally.
Viv, she's a good friend of mine and she's an escort. Like, she is really young still, but mentally she's so wise, because a lot of people that are twice her age book her to just talk with her. And these are really successful men. Some of them are millionaires. And she's just learning things from just conversing with absolute strangers as part of her job. So I find it fascinating, you know, it's like that whole concept of like even Joe Rogan doing a podcast, and he just loves his job because he just gets to talk shit with people.
Mm.
He doesn't know what to expect. He goes in there blind. He hasn't read their book, you know? He
Mm.
hasn't gone and stalked them hard and come up with key points on the bullet points or whatever. It's just like, man, I'm just going to be myself, and be open and see where the conversation goes. And I think that is like therapy.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. And like, going back to your friend Viv and like the line of work she does, and what we were talking about before in terms of, life experience.
Mm,
She may be young, but like
mm,
you said, the type of work she does and the level of, diverse experiences that
mm.
she's able to, have doing that,
Yeah,
that sort of tells why, or maybe why she is, very wise for her age, and this is like
absolutely, man.
the converse to, not having, these, personal experiences for yourself and having those in life rather than, experiencing them through a screen type of thing, right? And
Yeah.
like, that's what I mean. Like conversation, it's like this, it's like a beautiful medium of expression, and you know this yourself. And when you're in a dark place and you're depressed and you just don't have anyone to turn to. You don't want to talk to people, but what happens is that we have these thoughts that just, continually swirl around in our minds. And as they stay in there, they get stronger and stronger and louder, right?
They
But
just eat
like,
away at you. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
like,
Mm,
for us to have a conversation with someone, just to have a real raw conversation and just express ourselves, not
mm.
even with the aim to say anything in particular, but just
Yeah.
to express ourselves
Yeah.
through the medium of conversation and voice. Like it's absolutely, therapy.
Well,
Yeah.
apparently that the whole world is using Zoom, and you know, because of COVID, it's recommended to hop on and talk to people. And it's funny that, isn't it? It's just such a logical solution to loneliness,
Yeah.
and it's amazing not more people use it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I hop on Facebook and I can see on the right panel how many people are online right now. You
Mm.
know, people that I haven't spoken to in a while, and it's cool. Like a couple of mates from uni have reached out, and a good mate of mine, Dom, just hilariously just sent me a message that hello, like that. I'm just like, oh man, it's just so good, you know? It's just so good. And another guy, Daniel, wants to hop on the podcast with me, and like we've already discussed it. We're like, let's not treat it like a podcast. It's just a phone call, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I
A
mean, this
catch
is
up.
this is this is basically what it is,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
uh, even through like halfway through talking, I just find myself, I just forget that we are actually recording right now.
Well, that exactly. It's
You
just a
know?
button. It's just a thing. But I mean, there's no agenda. Like it's amazing when I did put that call out looking for potential guests. So many people messaged me in private and like, "What's the topic?"
Yeah.
I'm like, well, part of me is like, well, if you haven't checked out my previous podcast, and you know, if you haven't even bothered to listen to one and you just want to be on it, like, what is your motive to be on it? And you
Yeah.
know, I don't know if I feel comfortable to converse to a point where we do set a topic and try to adhere to it. And you know, one guy was like, "Oh, I'll get back to you because I'm still launching my business and I probably should get it out there before hopping on the podcast." And I'm just like, "Oh," just like you start to see the levels and the transitions and transitional phases that people are going through, and I'm like, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's
maybe
like they're trying to take advantage of a platform in your reach, mate. Basically, you know what I mean?
I
Like,
have none though. That's the
yeah,
thing, man. It's like, see, that's another thing. Like when you post some stuff on your Facebook, like a podcast, like I can't help but feel a little upset that not more people are checking it out.
mm,
You know, like I'm not talking like having millions of people like Joe Rogan does, but um, it doesn't it doesn't equate like the amount of messages that I get versus likes or views, or it doesn't match up.
mm,
It's it's really difficult to get anyone to invest the time into something long platform like a podcast,
yeah, totally.
you
It
know.
is.
So I think bottom line is uh I don't think I've got that reach anymore that I used to have, and it's a little bit annoying to me in retrospect that I used that reach at that time to not in a way that I would use it today,
Yeah,
let's just say,
yeah,
you know. It's sad that I posted a whole lot of content that was just very feel goody, kind of just not taking a risk, and it's too easy,
yeah,
and it was a job. And um, now I don't have anywhere near as much reach, and it's a little bit sad. Like I still value that feedback that we get from doing stuff like this, but I wouldn't mind more feedback. I can handle more. Put
yeah,
it that way. I can
yeah,
handle more. Like I've got so much time in a day now, man.
mm,
I could handle more conversations with people, and I could give people more time because I've
yeah,
got it. I've got it to give. So again, back to square one about what we were talking about, like trying to get it more out there, and you know, my negative thoughts about advertising and stuff. It's a weird place to be at the moment.
yeah, man. I mean, I think it shows like a little bit different, and I think your story of coming back. What was it? The end of last year and starting um, threesome lab, and then
And
shifting
space,
away
yeah.
from that, right?
Mm, mm, mm,
That's sort
mm,
of
mm.
it. Sort of paints that picture. Do you know what I mean? Like this honoring of the art of it, and not so much the business side of things. Because the business side of things, it speaks to the desire, the need for attention. Essentially, that's inherent in business. Like the more attention you have, the more eyes you have, the more eyes you have, the more potential business you come through the door. But um, conversely, the way that I have been approaching, I've never advertised at all for Finding Space, right?
Mm.
Like I need to honor the art, and that's just authentic expression. I need to honor that. And like for me, if people resonate with it, just like that example I told you, then that's beautiful. That's a wonderful thing. And
Yeah.
if they don't, that's cool. It's not their medicine, and that's fine. You can find your own medicine if mine's not the right one, you know.
Yeah.
But it's tough to again like balance this way of thinking as well, and you've lived this, man, as an
Mm,
artist, as a
mm.
true artist. Like being a true artist, you don't, quote unquote, make it, in this successful sense. It's so difficult to do that
Mm.
because it's not a priority. It's not about
It never
that.
was. It
Yeah.
never was. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that pops into your head, and then you kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like Morpheus is like a thorn, or a
Mm,
spike. It's more like just an annoying fly that pops on your head, and you just squat it away. Sometimes it's
mm.
like you. It's almost like a temptation,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, like I think through experience as you go on that like when we talked about this on the podcast. Like if I compromise too much, I know what that feels like.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I know that I'm going to have to deal with it
Mm.
later on. Yeah, that whole question that that video asked to the 3 people that were over 100 years old, like, do you have regrets? Like, it's a really tough question,
Mm.
and it's a really hard one for people in the moment to wonder whether they are going to regret what they're doing every day. You can take every day as it comes, but then when you spend a lot of your day being angry, which I got there. I got really angry and grumpy, and start to complain about fucking everything.
Mm.
Yeah, you kind of wonder whether you're going to regret that at some
Yeah.
point.
And that's where I guess you hear those stories of people on their deathbeds, saying that they ask those questions, what if, or I wish that I had, And like, again, for me, I don't feel like, and like, I can't stand here and say that, like, I know all the answers. So don't take it as if like, anyone listening, don't take it as if like, I'm an authority on this, but this is just my personal, like, take on it and how I feel about life right now. Cause I've been on both sides, so to speak, on the other side, back when I was in corporate, I truly felt hollow. I felt empty, I felt like there was a void in my existence, and I always tried to fill it with the next external thing, whether it was, the next promotion, a new car, a new watch, whatever it was,
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? It's just like fitting in kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
and even growing up in Australia, like we heard about the concept of tall poppy syndrome pretty early on.
Yeah.
Like you get too successful, people get jealous, and jealousy leads to hate, and
That's it.
that's a tough one to at any time to compare yourself to what other people have, for good or worse. I think it's not necessarily a healthy thing.
Yeah.
You can try to temporarily boost yourself up by saying, fuck, so many people have it worse than me, I'm so fucking privileged. But I don't necessarily think that that's where it's at either. That's not truly facing it. That's just a bit of logic that makes it easier for you in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it is a way for you to like shift your perspective a little bit, and it's helpful in that regard. But
Can be
yeah,
helpful, yeah.
yeah, for sure. But like, again, like it just comes back to like if you look at like fundamentally what your life is about, it's just like an experience, it's like a chain of experiences that you personally have, and like every experience that you have, you dictate that you have the choice to enjoy it or not, at the end of the day. Like fundamentally speaking, don't put any like other layers of complexity around it. We have the choice to choose how we experience life, and if like you can control that and you have the choice to control that, then that's it. Like if you feel fulfilled, if you feel full, like as opposed to empty in whatever you're doing, then for me that's enough. Like
Oh,
that
100%. Yeah. Yeah. You hear it all the time though. Like people, when you do suggest that you can change and stuff like that, man, people will slap you the fuck down and just say, no, I can't.
Mm.
I can't fucking change. It's
Mm.
easy for you to say,
Mm.
and that's the thing. Like there's so much of that. There's so much of that, and I can understand it too. Because when I was in the dumps,
Yeah.
man, I was spitting fire like that too.
Yeah.
So that, again, going back to just everyone's going to be in a different place at a different time. Some people just that are just got so much weight in their shoulders, you can't expect them to just hit that switch and
Yeah.
flick out of it. But holy fuck, that whole like even I was talking with Adam Knightley with the last podcast, but it's like the cheesy analogy of there's light at the end of the tunnel. It's so fucking true though.
It
It's
totally
like
is.
it's like I hate it. I hate it. It's so cheesy, but like man, like you just never know. Like I'm living proof of like having moments where I thought I was awake, but then literally the week after I really was awake. So um you don't know when it's going to hit you. It's not a progressive thing or something that you can predict, I think. Um,
It isn't.
sometimes it
It
is
isn't at
just,
all. But
yeah,
like, at the end of the day, in terms of like changing and helping people and things like this, like it's a very noble thing, like to want to do that, right? And like
mm,
I'm glad you brought the um our meeting when you and I caught up,
yeah,
and
yeah,
like I wasn't there to do anything, like you said. Like I wasn't trying to give you advice or anything like this,
nah,
because like
mm,
the thing that I like to say is that help really, really isn't an offer. It's a request. People need to be ready to be helped, to ask for help.
that's
And
pretty
this
true.
this is the same thing for change as well.
Mm,
Like, everyone knows, like, within themselves how difficult it is to change yourself and your behaviors and your beliefs.
mm,
So how can you think that you can do so for someone else? Do you know what I mean? You must want to do it. You must truly
yeah,
want to do it.
mm, that's interesting. But yeah, yeah, I think, I think this idea or concept of like looking for happiness is slowly starting to unravel. I think that's one thing that I've noticed on social media is that more and more people are waking up to the idea of, well, you can't be happy forever.
Mm.
I think a little bit of realism is trending in that, like, maybe what it's going to change towards is finding kindness and um, finding being more at peace with yourself is a better end goal than just to be happy every
Yeah.
day of your life.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
these are like I guess, the old thinkings of like, and it needn't be so extreme as like, nihilism and how there is no meaning to life and things like this, right? Like
mm,
in a sense, right? To me, it's true, you know. Like if you put like you said, a lot of people are thinking that life is all about being happy, right? And this is the meaning to life. But realistically, like we innately are just here to survive as people. And if we can liberate ourselves from thinking that there's some sort of grand purpose or meaning,
mm,
then that in itself is like, um, the on the I guess converse side, it's infinite in terms of what we can make of our lives. Do you know what I mean? To
mm.
say that there's no concrete purpose or meaning to it then gives us the chance to choose whatever the fuck we want it to be. Like I can be a dragon, and that's what makes me fucking happy. So I'm gonna be a dragon. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And it
yeah.
fills me up. It fills my cup.
Mm, 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 mm. Well, good stuff, man. That's a good start to the morning for me. Friday. And no alcohol either. Jeez, man, I was so drunk on this podcast that I did the other night that I was swearing every third word. And like I don't like to listen back to my podcasts anyway because I don't know, I never remember what I say on them. But I listened back to this one, I couldn't listen to it. I was swearing so much. It was such a potty mouth for no good reason. And I just kept thinking, man, if my mum listened to this, she'd be really embarrassed. So going forwards, I think I might start doing podcasts in the morning.
Yeah, lessen
Coffee,
the chance, huh? Lessen the chance of alcohol to creep in, huh?
It's just I think I'm a happy drunk, not an angry one, but just the potty mouth. The potty mouth is it's such a good word though, but oh, it's probably going to be the last word that comes out of my mouth, I think. But cheers, Leslie, for your time, man. And again,
Pleasure, man.
many thanks for like getting me on that podcast. And just I know I've said it to you before, but just like thank you for helping me flick that switch, man. Like, I wish it for everybody who's in a tough place. You just never know when it's going to happen. But as you said a second ago, like, you do need to want it to happen. And in order to want it to happen, you need to put some energy in somewhere, whether
Totally.
it's just showing up, man. All I had to do was show up. Both show up to meet you at a cafe and to show up and do the podcast. And those 2 times that I showed up have paid me 100-fold.
No, I
So
appreciate that,
thanks.
man.
Thanks so much. And
And
yeah, go on.
I'll always be there to support you, man. Like, I didn't do nothing. I'm just here to, listen if you need someone to listen to you speak. So,
No,
always
cheers,
there.
bro. I'm here for you too, man. All the best with the show. And
Yeah, thanks, bro.
it took me a while to actually start listening to your podcast. I think at that stage I wasn't quite ready for it yet, but I have been starting to listen to a few, and same thing. You find bits of gold in there, and just adds to your fiber.
That's
So
it.
it's good stuff.
And that's all we can ask of ourselves, man. That's all we
Yeah.
can ask of ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you have a good day, Leslie.
Yeah, you too, man.
I'll catch up with you. Hopefully I'll catch up with you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, man. Maybe we can jump on for another podcast sometime soon as well.
Yeah, Sean's awesome, man. Like, I've never had met the guy before we did that podcast, but just so easy to be open in front of someone that I'd never met before. I mean, he just made me feel really comfortable. So, you guys talk about being opposites, but I didn't see it that way at all. You guys make a really good team. You don't butt horns, you don't butt heads. He's a very open-minded guy. And I like hearing him speak. So yeah, definitely.
All right, man.
All right,
Take
man.
it easy, huh? I'll
Yeah,
speak to
you
you
too.
soon.
All right, catch ya, Leslie.
See you, bro.
Catch ya.